All right. Hey, Andrew. Oh, that's right. I gotta get onto the control page. Oops. All right. Everything looks good. Live chat is there. And oh shoot, I just closed my window. There we go. Almost there. What? There we go. Just had to turn on public. Okay. Now the world knows. How's it going, guys? I have not been sculpting a lot recently. Feeling a little, I don't know, rusty, but just a little out of it. Excited to continue doing it. Yeah, my day job has been, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great, but it's just been so busy and crazy, and
yeah,
working a lot extra, and then when I get home, you know, you just, even though this is fun, it can feel like work sometimes.
Yeah.
So
it's tough. It's tough to find good time.
yes.
Yeah. No, I've been waking up a couple hours earlier, hour early if I can. I feel like if I can get myself up, I can do it a lot better in the morning than at night.
That's the truth. Yeah, I need to get back on that. I was on a schedule like that for a while, but I've let myself go. All right. How can I get this thing to focus correctly? There we go. This is my figure. I promised my son I would sculpt for him and decided I had better get back to it.
Was that?
This is a sculpt I promised my son I would do.
Oh, I mean, what is the figure?
Oh, sorry, a dwarf, a sci-fi.
Oh, okay.
I haven't worked on it in a long time. I'm trying to get back in the place where I am doing this stuff more for fun and less commissions. I'm not really doing commissions, but I have a couple things that I'm working on for some friends that are technically jobs, even though I have a lot of latitude. But just too much going on to be branching out too far.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you. I don't think you weren't on the last hangout, were you, Isaac? I think Andrew was.
Yeah, no, I couldn't make it.
That's cool. We ended up talking about Sculptember.
Okay.
So I'm getting ready to put up a video about that. Just talk a little bit about what that is to me, and see if I can get some people to join in on the challenge. So I don't know. Maybe it'll kill me. Maybe it'll get me back in the groove.
Yeah. What? Can you give a short description before that, or?
Absolutely. So, talked about it a bit in the last hangout, and then I sat down and kind of worked out what, some parameters, what I thought would be good. So I'm gonna pull up this so that I can see if I'm reciting it correctly. I came up with kind of 4 rules for the challenge. I struggled with keeping it pretty open for myself, and obviously, you know, anybody that participates can take it to any level they want, but I decided to try and kind of nail down some things a little more, because otherwise you end up just kind of twiddling your thumbs, and you may be sculpting, but maybe you won't actually achieve anything. So here's what I came up with. Number 1, you set a goal with a minimum of completing 1 sculpt by the end of September 30th.
Okay.
You can pledge to do 2 or 4, you know, from the beginning, or you can get done with your 1 and then just keep going. But commit to doing 1 sculpt. Second is to sculpt every day, because it's not just about completing it; it's about building up the habit and seeing the progress. Because you can work in batches. You know, you could work 8 hours one day, but it's very easy to let a lot of time go by. And when you're, whoa, I just flipped my tool. And when you're trying to, you know, build up your skill and technique, I find it's more effective when you're doing, even if you're doing shorter amounts of time, but every day.
Sure.
Because there's a lot that you can lose or get distracted by. You split up. Third is post your progress online every day.
Okay.
And that's just, you know, to keep some accountability and, you know, keep a record for yourself, just like I was doing with the 100 days. Something to go back and see everything that you accomplished in that time. And it's actually come in handy. I've actually gone back and found a couple things I was looking for. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember I recorded it on that video, so I can go back and see what I did to reference for this other thing. And then the last one is to hashtag it with hashtag Sculptember and hashtag Sculptember 2017.
Okay. Hashtags are used on you're posting this on social media?
Yeah, if you're posting it on most people are probably going to just, you know, post it up on Facebook or Instagram. Okay. Or if you had a blog, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily have to hashtag it that way, but it's more just to. The reason why I'm asking people to do it is because I plan on doing. I'm going to post every day, but I plan on trying to record like a weekly video to kind of recap everything, and I'm hoping to pull up and see other people's work that are doing this challenge at the same time. I could show it in the video, or just see it myself, and that's just a really easy way to aggregate it all together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I was a little disappointed that I shouldn't say disappointed. I shouldn't be surprised that name had actually already existed. There was actually several. I decided to search it real quick about a week ago, and I saw lots of little Facebook pages and posting groups so it's been around. It's been a thing, but it's never been that big of a thing. Like, I don't really typically see it posted on social media a lot. So, and obviously it doesn't have to be miniatures. It can be whatever, but the point is sculpting. But, you know, we're talking about miniatures, so that's what I'm focusing it on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What are you working on?
If you're, for me, kind of wise, I felt like I had some momentum and then started kind of sculpting not so well. I don't know. I guess maybe I was rushing, but just kind of doing some faces. I'm trying to get better at faces right now. But that, and I sculpted a little wolf. I want to do some animals, kind of like a husky. I'm not quite done with it, but I don't know. Cool. Oh, there.
Oh, cool. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Click on you. There we go.
Yeah,
pull it back up.
It was kind of fun. I mean, I try to base it off of like a Reaper type of one that I have for scale, but I managed to make it too bulky, but I think it still kind of has a likeness to a wolf or something, and my 2-year-old can tell it's a wolf. But, so I did that, and then Yeah, there's a few other things. I made a mermaid for my wife, and actually, I did some casting. I bought this like a vulcanizer that works in a what is it, in a toaster oven, and it
Oh, that's
actually,
cool.
this was the, well, this is kind of just not destroyed, but it doesn't, where was it there, you can't, probably can't see it, so, but it's supposed to be a mermaid. She wanted that, and I don't know, something like that. But then I casted it. It actually came out like not too bad. I had the temperature a little bit too high,
Hmm.
but so it distorted it. But it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun to work with. So kind of looking forward to doing more stuff with that. It's a lot easier and faster than the RTV stuff I was doing before.
Yeah.
Sure.
What are you sculpting with putty or probably clay?
Yeah, it's all green stuff. I
Oh,
actually, well, I did do some, as on and off. I've been trying Fimo, and well, I was doing Beats Buddy. I guess I should do more with Beats Buddy because I have a good amount of it. But yeah,
don't make yourself use it just because you have it. If you don't like it or you're getting better results with something else, I would focus on that.
yeah, it's well, I mean, I don't want to discount the product because some really good sculptors are using it, but
Yeah.
it's fun to sculpt with. But I think I told you that before. Almost everything I've made with it has cracked somehow. Just like taking
Mm,
it off the dolly, or so it's very just really frustrating. You know, you put a bunch of
gotcha.
time into it, and then it
Yeah.
breaks on you. So, but yeah, I do like Fimo. I need to get. It's a totally different thing since I've been sculpting mainly in putty
Hmm.
and then go into that. Even though it's doable, it will take a lot more time though. I think for me to get used to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's getting there.
That's good. Well, actually, for your little Vulcan set, I was actually gonna say if you weren't using putty to maybe try it because that would tend to hold up better in
Yeah,
that process unless you're using rubbers that can be a lot lower temp. So
yeah. It's going okay.
cool. Hey, Kettle.
Hey, how you
What do
doing?
you work? Good.
Uh, so oh, I don't know if you can see it. Get it in. Decided to do a troll for my Blood Bowl team.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's quite a large beast. So I'm
Very
just
cool.
skinning it. It's going to take me a while.
Yes, the large figures always take a while. They're fun though. What are you working on, Andrew? Anything, or are you just here to hang out?
Yeah, I've done a couple of sculpts. Um, I don't know if I think I was working on this one. Um, hold on a second. Let's see if I can get it bigger. There we go. Let's see. I think I was working on this one last time we did the hangout.
Oh yeah.
I don't, but I completed it, and there's a better view. Painted her up. So that's kind of a fun one. I don't know how well you can. My camera's not great, so I apologize for that, but
That's right.
that was fun. And
Cool.
then I've got another one that I completed. I wanted to kind of experiment with how small I could go and still get a sculpt,
Hmm.
and so sorry, I'm not quite awake yet, so um, I'm not totally coherent. But anyway, so here's a little guy that I did. He's frog
Cool.
versus Thor, and he's about 6 millimeters high.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, that was a real challenge, but it was a fun. One thing I discovered that I worked primarily in polymer and green stuff without without much armature.
Mhm.
But I had to work a little more quickly than I normally do.
Did you use an armature for that six
Usually I
millimeter one?
use what's that?
Oh, I was just curious if you used an armature, what you did for the armature for that 6 millimeter one.
I did do an armature, but it's kind of minimal
Okay.
compared to the
Just enough of something to
armature.
let the material grab onto.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And right now, here's what I've been sort of balancing that with doing just some straightforward painting. Here's a really old Grenadier mini that I've been doing a repaint on.
Awesome.
So yeah, and I've got I'm planning some other little project. Oh, here's another paint job that I did from, I forget what company.
Looks kind of familiar.
Hassle-free.
That's cool.
Robot with a brain in a jar.
It's not a one of Patrick Keith's, is it? Counterblast?
Counterblast.
I know he's.
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
That was it.
I know he does those transparent bubble helmets. I love those things.
Yeah, I like them too. I want to use more of them in some
That's
of my
cool.
own stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys think you'll partake in Sculptember? Commit to a figure and post every day and
I will try. I am going to be doing some traveling for work.
oh yeah, that can be tough.
I won't be able to do it the whole time, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I can. I don't have any plans, and I guess I need to decide on what I want to sculpt. I haven't, need something to commit to, but yeah, that'll be easy enough to figure out, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I will. I have to, got an idea, but I have to flesh it out first. I think it might be a bit complicated. But...
That's all right. You got a whole month to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hope a lot of people decide to try it out that haven't even finished one, just to give them a reason to push through and do it, because I know a lot of times they'll sculpt, but they'll get distracted or get frustrated by their skill level, and so they'll start over, and it's nice and rewarding to get to a point where you just have one that's done, even if it's not perfect. I always like doing the challenges. They had similar challenges like this on the One List sculpting group back in the day. Everybody they would then on that one though, they would actually a lot of times they would pick a theme. So maybe sci-fi pirate or I can't remember. I'm trying to remember some of them. I know that was one of them actually. It was some sort of space pirate. And then there was, I can't remember any of the other ones. That's the only other one I remember. That was the one I tried to do. I didn't finish it. Had some neat ideas though. Maybe I'll do them someday.
well, I like the idea of doing a theme.
Yeah, for the idea of Sculptember, I thought it'd be better, at least initially, to just leave it open. But I like the idea of maybe doing, maybe it's not even a Sculptember thing. Maybe it's just something that I call out, like to challenge myself and say, hey, join in, you know, as far as the mini sculpting super show, and then put a theme on it, and that way anybody who wants to take part in a little more of a, oh, what's the word, you know, a little bit more of a setup, defined parameters, I can do that. Because I know that can help. Sometimes you when it's all wide open, you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Especially.
All right, this guy's coming along a little better. I need to finish his gun, though. I have to figure out how I want his pants to be. Be right back.
Make some coffee. Yeah.
There we go. I have gotten to paint a little more recently. That's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
Finished the last character for my Rogue Stars squad. Still haven't played the game yet, though. When Gen Con came and went, that was the first time since it's
How was
been
that?
Indy. I didn't go. I actually skipped this
Oh.
year. First time since it's been to Indy that I haven't been there. And it was the 50th, which everybody was going crazy about, but I just wanted a break. It was weird, though, seeing the people posting about it and having it kind of be here and then gone all of a sudden. You know, it goes quick while you're there, but you know, you're building up all those memories, and so it was kind of weird to know that it happens, but have no recollection of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a different place than it used to be. Not quite my thing as much as it used to be, but it's pretty awesome still. Especially if you're into board games and role-playing games. So I got to do a new poll for what to do another next episode about, or a future episode about, because I know it's not always the next one. But you guys have any suggestions? I've got a big list, but I always like to see if there's anything on your mind.
I'd like
You know,
to.
one. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I'd like to see one on doing guns. You mentioned that you're doing some, giving that guy a gun, and I find it challenging to do anything that's really like technical looking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that would be helpful.
All right. I like some of that. That was high on my list to do next. Okay. Sorry, I got to invite somebody. I totally forgot. I'm sorry, Miko. All right, Miko, I sent the link. All right. Sculpting guns. All right. I like the sound of that.
One thing, when you're doing the smoothing video,
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of like watching some of the sculpting videos of people doing anatomy and stuff. I know that's not like really a tutorial necessarily, but it does help just to watch that. I mean, I watch a lot of the Miniature Mentor and that kind of stuff, and just seeing how you do it, how you put it together. Thing I always struggle with. So just I don't know. That's helpful for me.
That's a good idea. I actually, there's a couple videos that I want to do that are really just me talking, and they're not showing anything specific. So that might be a good thing for me to do. Just record me working on, this figure, for instance, and just while I'm talking about something else, but there's, something to see.
Right.
Kind of watch that happening. All right, that's a good idea. I'll probably put one of those up on the list to vote on. All right, this guy's gonna be pretty sweet. I need to finish this gun though before I can do too much. Well, I guess I could sculpt the rest of his body, but. Mikowai!
Hey guys.
Hey.
Nice to meet you guys.
Miko is the one that's been making the mini sculpting super show videos look so good.
Oh, cool.
He's a good sculptor too. We were just talking about, well, we've been talking about a couple things, but one of the things we were talking about, I don't know if you heard, was Sculptember. Are you going to try and, I know you've been sculpting regardless, but are you going to try and do the challenge and post every day about your progress? And
Of course. You can count me in. And I also heard something about guns tutorial.
yes,
That's something I would really love to see. That.
yes. Yeah, that might actually just be the next video without any voting, actually, because I do have some footage ready for that. Just got to wrap it up. Yeah, I got to film a little more still, but. What are you working on, Miko?
Yeah, I was kind of trying to turn my camera on, but it doesn't seem to work. I'm still working on the undead gunslinger that
Awesome.
I sent you the first elements. I was actually going to ask something. How do you guys tackle hair? Do you do strand by strand and just try to mold it together, or put a bigger piece and then just add stuff over it?
Do you guys want to share your techniques, and then I can talk about mine?
Sure. I've been doing basically one big piece and then adding individual strands and then just working up the detail from there.
Okay. But do you put like one big piece and then just carve into it just to give it like a basic shape, or like build up with?
I'll do one big piece and then do some separate pieces, and then carve into the pieces, separate pieces that are over the main part to get the detail.
Anybody else want to share some of their techniques?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess mine's pretty similar to that. I guess I lay down like a foundation, as thin as possible to sculpt over the top of, and then cut into that once I have the shape there. I guess sometimes I'll add some individual strands though. I think it looks better. It's harder for me to do, but I think it looks better when it's like a large pieces without the individual strands in it. I feel like I always go overboard with that or cut too deep or something. But yeah.
Yeah, I find it kind of difficult to imagine the hair as like one block or one piece. I always have trouble drawing hair too, so that's why I'm kind of curious.
Well, maybe this will help you. You can do it two ways. You can just put a big blob on, and then you can start forming it around like into the general shape, and then cut in like the larger flowing elements, not individual hairs, but just like the larger locks of hair.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do that a lot. I'll try and do the most, but what I will do sometimes if I have some really pronounced ones, I'll kind of get the base one down, and then I'll maybe make it roll up another tube and then lay that one on, and then keep adding more that way. But it's still very large shapes, and once you get that all on there, you just have to blend it in place. And then where you go from there kind of depends on if you want the hair to be more cartoony or stylized rather than realistic. If you want to be more stylized, then you don't have to put in every little strand. You might just cut in some. You want to cut in some smaller ones, but just to give it a little more depth. But you don't have to. But the point is to kind of get those large, main sweeping ones. Are you doing longer hair or shorter hair?
Nah, he's just gonna have like this bald zombie head, and just like back of his head will have some like leftover hair, maybe one strand in front of an ear, like a.
Gotcha.
The.
So you're having trouble because you're like when you put down too much at once, is it becoming too much of a blob or too hard to control? Is that your struggle?
Yeah, well. The biggest problem I have is when I already put one piece and I want to add strands, I have real trouble blending it in, so you don't see the crevice between the old piece and new, and I don't have such a good technique to control it on like this macro scale.
Gotcha.
So, but I think I'm gonna go for a more overall shape from one blob. That seems like a better approach for me.
Remind me, are you sculpting with putty or poly clay?
Green, for now, I'm stuck to green stuff because that's the only resource that's I'm left with.
That's what I thought. And so, are you adding more after it cures, or are you trying to add more while it's still soft?
Well, it's easier to blend in when it's soft. So I don't know. I had 2 attempts, both I removed because I wasn't really satisfied with, and I'm kind of scared to leave like the first layer in and just wait for the cure, because then I'm like done. And
yes. Well, try this then. When you do try to do it all at once, don't forget that you can always cut and trim away, and sometimes that can be easier than putting on a little bit and then putting on a little bit more and trying to blend it together. Sometimes it's easier to put on more than you need, start spreading out, smoothing out, trim some off, and if that's still too much, you just spread it out a little more, make it a little thinner, trim it off. That works for me a lot of times, especially when you have some thinner spots like really fine hairs that you're trying to make, when it's not going to be a big head shape or something like that.
All right. Well, we'll see how that works out.
Okay.
Soon enough.
Yeah, it can be challenging to blend putty together, especially if they're 2 different mixes or if it's started to set up too much.
Now it's also my first attempt on like this small scale, so I tend to put too much all the time.
Yeah.
It's like even when I'm mixing, I think that should be really enough, and it always ends up to be like 10 times more than I need.
Oh wow.
it's because you've seen my previous works. I've done some bigger ones, and it's totally different scale. Really, I didn't suspect the differences in I don't know everything, tool control, amount of material, and also how it behaves in totally differently.
Yeah, it's very surprising how when you start to get this small, how just a couple millimeters can make a huge difference on the overall perception of it all.
And the silicone tools finally become really like useful, because before that I just stuck to the metal ones, but now for all the fine tuning and details, it's just like hard tip is just too much. Always push it too far.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're getting to utilize those more. They're very, very helpful with putty, especially just because it's so sticky it is. I can't believe August is almost over. It's crazy.
Oh, I know.
So we're planning on doing Sculptember, and then right after that, I think I'm going to try and do Inktober, which that'll be a challenge for me, just because I'm going to try and step it up this year. I'm going to try and I don't know how detailed of drawings I'll do, but last year I did potions because it was on purpose. I wanted to challenge myself to come up with 31 unique concepts, but I purposely chose something that was a little simpler to tackle rather than like a full character or a scene. But this year I was thinking about trying to do like a different character every day.
You're going to update some videos about that too?
Yep. I don't know if I'll do every day, just because, especially with the drawing, because I don't know. It's funny. Like it takes a lot more brain power for me, even though I can draw and I like to draw, but it's not. I've been doing sculpting consistently for so long that even when it's something challenging, I can just jump into it and start doing it. And anyways, the videos, they just take a lot more time. So, but I would like to do something once a week, because I do like it's a nice way to kind of show it all off and in one place in a different format besides just pictures on the internet.
Yeah, because I was watching your like first work in last episode, and somebody in the comments like pointed out that it's kind of ridiculous how good your second sculpt looked, but I guess that comes with years of drawing practice. So
yeah, that definitely, I really do think that helped, because you do, yeah, when you're studying characters and form, that's getting in your mind, and then the challenge really had always been just figuring out the material. So
I think having a good background with the anatomy really helps.
But I don't know. I always found sculpting so much easier than drawing. I've always loved drawing, and I've always wanted that. That was always what I was originally thought I was going to do in illustrating. But I don't know, the fact that when you're sculpting, it's in perspective, it's in reality. It almost felt like it was it just kind of worked itself out in a way. It was a little more obvious to see when something was right or wrong, I guess. I just don't know how I want to do this guy's pants. Maybe I'll make a belt.
Tom, are you still thinking about setting up a forum for the group?
Yes. I think I'm going to do it as a Facebook group.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I should really do that like this week so that there's a place for us to talk about our sculpts we're working on this month for anybody that's doing that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I am not the most internet savvy guy. I mean, I know the stuff and I can do it, but I just don't live there like some people do.
Sure.
So I have to admit, I just kind of let it slide. So
Yeah, can't blame you. Rather not deal with it.
I'd rather be sculpting.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's good to have those things in those communities. Ah. Fix this. One more try. Belts are one thing I actually do prefer to do in green stuff. Every now and then there will be an element that is easier. And rolling out these like long, flat shapes where you want edges on them. I always found it a little easier with the green stuff. Or Procreate, putty. But overall, I think I still prefer the polyclay.
Why is that? I mean, I'm sure you've said it before, but I just.
Oh, that's fine. Well, actually, don't ever feel bad about asking again. I realize that I should be saying some of the same things more in my videos with the questions I get, because so many people, that video might be their first one, and they might get to it eventually. But okay, anyways, to answer the question, I like being able to work the whole miniature at once at any part wherever I feel like. When you're working with putty, you can do a lot at once, but you have to. You're on a time crunch. You have to get it on there. You have to start putting it into shape, and you got to be cleaning it up like all at the same time.
Yeah.
Or you choose one little spot to work on and you pour everything into it and get it done, but then you need to make, there might be adjustments that need to happen later because you didn't get a proportion right or something.
Yeah, that's true.
So, quick question. What was your worst squish you ever did? Because that's the risk you're taking when you're walking, like you can just squish like the whole leg, or because you grabbed it. Did it happen to you? Or
I have absolutely never squished a polyclay sculpt.
wow.
Never. It's crazy because that was my greatest fear too, and it was a huge fear. Which figure was it? I don't think I did videos. I did a dwarf and a barbarian a long time ago, back when I had my old sci-fi line, and those were my first two polyclay sculpts, and I was so scared. But I had these jars, to keep everything covered, and then I just was very intent, telling myself, hold it like this, never putting your finger up to brace. But with putty, I have squished constantly. I still to this day will squish figures, not as bad, not as often, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but I don't know if because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, that I've sculpted on that, it's probably cured, and I'm not thinking because I know that it's setting up. It's weird, but yeah, never with the polyclay. But I know it does happen to people. I have dropped. I guess I have dropped one before, and it got a little messed up, but it wasn't too bad. But that could have happened with anything.
I used some of your armatures, Tom. I got them from your Kickstarter, and then
Oh, cool.
they're very useful.
Awesome.
Oh yes, yes they are.
I'm actually planning on making some figures with them myself soon. They can really save a lot of time, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of the same size guys over and over again. Actually, this is a really cool technique, and I'm not sure. I haven't tried it with mine, so be careful if you try it with them. But James Van Schaik has a really cool technique. He uses precast armatures for everything. I mean, he's a very, very fast sculptor as well. But he will actually use he actually pinches them to grow them, or he'll trim them off if he wants a guy to be shorter and stuff like that. But it's really cool to see how he builds them up. Like he can go from a 30 millimeter guy to like almost a 40 millimeter guy. That might be stretching it, but it's very impressive to see how he does that. But his armatures tend to be a little thicker to begin with, so he has more material to work with. I think mine might be a touch thin for that. You might be able to grow them a little bit, but
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that miniature mentor one of his. Yeah,
oh yes,
if anybody, it's worth. I think it's worth buying. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if he takes the pre-made armature and does a lot of that with the pliers, stretches it out, and
Mhm.
a lot of it's kind of built before he even puts putty on it. You know,
yeah.
just with the metal there, it's pretty impressive. I mean, he makes it look a lot easier probably than that is, but it's really cool seeing that.
Yeah, all those miniature mentor videos are great, and I was really glad when he got tapped to do one, because everybody else on there is doing polyclay, which is just great. You know, I love polyclay,
Right.
but I still, even though I prefer to do the majority of my sculpts in polyclay, there's definite benefits, and I think everybody should try and learn some putty.
Do you know what he made those? You just did well, I forgot
The
the name.
Frazetta minis?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know if he did those in in green stuff or putty stuff, or
I was looking at them. Let me pull it up again.
those are pretty big, like you said.
I know he does. He does work in both,
Okay.
but I don't know off the top of my head. Nature's Kickstarter. I mean, he did such a killer job on these, and what pressure too to be immortalizing Frank Frazetta paintings. I mean, it'd be so easy to just get the look and feel wrong. Let's see. I feel like he had. You know what? I don't know if he had any. Oh, you know what? I'm all right. I don't know for this for a fact, but I'm hoping to have him on to interview soon, and I'll
cool.
ask him. But I know that he was doing some of the later ones, not the initial three, but he was posting pictures of some of the later ones, and those were all with the green stuff.
Okay.
So I know he does green stuff. He goes to Procreate sometimes. He's usually working in putty. So my guess would be he did do these in putty, but
Yeah.
my
That's
guess.
so not to monopolize the video, but I was just thinking. I remember when you had Trey Manor on, and you're talking about just how accelerated he sculpts, and I think he said you did that the Cronin one, right?
Yeah, I
Just
sculpted that with him.
I mean, just seeing like a time lapse or something like that would be really cool at some point. I don't know if the full tutorial but just seeing somebody do that would be something, I think, because I don't sculpt that. Yeah, I can do that to save my life, but just because I need to see.
Mm-hmm. I just have to sit down in front of my camera more when I'm sculpting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Trey has worked in polyclay and putty a lot. He's mainly a putty sculptor now. That's what he prefers. But he does exactly what we were talking about. You know, he puts on a lot of material at first, and he works out basically the entire anatomy in one go of the character. You know, he'll basically do everything but the head. But he'll still have a blob on there for proportion.
Sure.
And if you get it on there, and if you practice enough, you can get it all nailed down. You know, just like I am here with the Fimo. You know, doing a little bit, building up at a time. But and he usually doesn't let anything cure. He usually just keeps sculpting, and as it's, you know, by the time he's done with the anatomy, it's not hard, but it's set up enough that it will maintain its form very nicely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's actually a big plus, even though it can be a stress to work in putty, because of the time constraint. It also pushes you forward. You only have so much time. And the only way to save the time is to work in little bits at a time, which can be excruciatingly slow. That's how I grew up sculpting with putty, and I hated it. I think that's one of the reasons that I didn't like it so much, because I never felt confident enough to do a ton at once. And so I would do a little bit at a time and wait for it to cure, a little bit at a time, wait for it to cure. And it just takes forever when you do it that way.
For me, the worst is like the stakes are always getting higher. Every hour you put into the work, it's like you're putting more money on the table. And I heard once that when you want to finish an artwork, you should undo the last move you made, and then it's ready. I really found that like when you're like really happy with yourself and you watched it already for like a couple of hours, and then you see like one thing, maybe I'll fix it. Nope.
Just be done.
Yeah, just be done.
That's really good advice. I've never heard it put that way, but that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So I catch myself doing that all the time, and you're right. It's done, and it's probably I'm the only one that saw that little thing.
Oh yeah, that's the curse.
That's interesting.
So I'm thinking about, I don't know, it depends on if I finish this guy before September starts, but I've got 2 figures for sure that I want to try and do. One is a ZBrush sculpt that I've been meaning to finish for a while, and another one is I want to do one of those goblins. This guy, actually, I don't think you guys have seen it this far, but I got this guy pretty far along. I was doing him to maybe be a blank, but I think I'm just going to finish him off and make him a singular sculpt. But I want to do another one in Fimo, because this is one where I was kind of figuring it out as I went, but it was in putty. And so there's a little thing. I mean, I could just chop it off, but I figured, you know what? I'm just going to keep going and just be finished with it. And then if I decide to change something or make something better, I'll do that on the next one, just like Nikolai is saying.
That's you do a lot of these like pre-made blanks when you especially when you work.
I don't usually, but it's actually been something that I've been really intrigued by recently. I recently have been getting into, not that I played it, but Saga and the Dark Age miniatures, and I noticed on a lot of these historical miniatures that they will essentially sculpt 4 different bodies, maybe sometimes with arms, sometimes without, but then they'll just put on slightly different clothes. They might even sculpt them all with clothes, and then they'll just add a cape to them or add some fur trim to the boots. And I was thinking that might be fun to try to do with the goblins, so that I could essentially quickly make like 20 unique sculpts. But you know, there would be maybe 3 or 4 unique poses. But then you give a guy a different weapon. You make he's yelling instead of just grimacing with his face. And, you know, this guy's got a cloak. The other guy's got armor. And it's amazing if you look at some of these, how unless you really focus in, you can't tell that they're essentially the same sculpts. Like they look different.
Yeah, the weapon itself will change the dynamic of the whole sculpt. So if you give it a heavy mace or a small dagger, it's already a major difference.
Exactly. So that's just something that it's kind of been on my mind to try recently.
And but for weapons and like extra stuff, like I don't know, pouches, shields, stuff like that. That you do probably a lot. Like if you're making a whole army and you have to have like similar weapons, or do you sculpt for each one separate?
The weapons would be something that I would look into making pre-mades for as well. You could make slight modifications of them, or if there's a really unique weapon, don't pre-make that one. But a typical sword or an axe, they're probably not going to vary a ton. Or you're going to have several guys that might have the same type of weapon. Keep grabbing the wrong tool. Anyways, that's just a really good trick if you have high volume, and that's part of the things that historical miniatures have. Their characters aren't always, fantasy miniatures tend to have a lot of character to them and a lot of uniqueness, and whereas historicals, they tend to not. They tend to be simpler looking figures and stuff. But what they do have going for them, and what kind of makes them stand out and look unique, is the army itself. But in order for that to be the case, you can't have a bunch of guys just standing there at attention with a spear. That can look kind of cool, but if you're trying to go for something more dynamic, you'd have lots of different poses. Otherwise, it starts to stand out as just the same miniature. So I thought goblins would be a good test for that, because you always need a horde of goblins. I'm taking too much time on this belt. It's because I'm scared to work on another part. That's another reason that I like the Fimo, is that you can end up fiddling with something too long, but what's cool is like I can just get the belt on there. I know there's more work to be done with it, but it's like I'm fixating out too much. Okay, just leave it alone. Go mess around with some other part. You can come back to do it anytime you want. Maybe have some fresh eyes for it.
Yeah, that's really nice. Also, I don't know, I just feel definitely have a commitment to make if you mix up some putty or something. If you don't, you have to have a certain time to get out. But if it's the Fimo one, you just take the jar off and work on it for as long as you have, and don't have to worry about it so much. But yeah, it's nice.
Yep. Any other questions or thoughts, guys? We're almost to the end of the hour. Just going to try and wrap this up a bit. I'm glad this time worked out, that we were able to get Miko on here, because he's over in the EU, Europe, rather.
Yep.
Are you in the EU? You're in the EU.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of it in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
so.
Amsterdam. So, just glad I wanted to. I can't always do it on the weekends, but I like to do it every now and then to make it easier for the.
No, it was already awesome that you guys met a little earlier. That's why I didn't have to wait till 3 in the morning. I don't mind. Sometimes it's really nice to sit like late, but better to do it civilized.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on the Hangout. As usual, it's been great to see you and see what you're working on. And I'll see you soon. Hopefully, all your sculptembering, and look forward
Will
to
you
seeing
be
what you're
posting
sculpting.
some information about Sculptember?
Yes, I'm going to do a video that's going to go up next week before the end of the month, hopefully early next week, to point people to a little page I'm going to set up that talks about what you getting yourself into and what you should do to be a part of it or follow along.
Cool.
Hey, honey. Cool. All right, guys.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Next time.
No problem. See you guys.
Bye now.